Hi, welcome to a new vlog. This is my third in this series. What are we calling them? Like new release vlogs. So in this vlog, I'll be reading. These have all been kind of overlapping, so timeline will not make sense if you're watching these. Like, oh, it kind of will. Like each vlog is in chronological order, but they're overlapping quite a bit. Because I'm just reading the books till they're done. So because I read through multiple formats, that means they're overlapping quite a bit. But this is the first book we're going to start talking about for the next vlog. So this is my third vlog. The first book will be I Killed Zoe Spanos by Kit Frick. I'm listening to this on audiobook. The other audiobooks for this vlog will be Bone Cries Moon by Catherine Purdy, which I don't have a physical copy of, but it looks like this. And The June Boys by Court Stevens. I Killed Zoe Spanos and The June Boys are both YA thrillers. Bone Cries Moon is a fantasy. Then physical reads, we have The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, which is a historical fiction. By new release, I mean 2020 releases. These are all 2020 releases. Then we have another YA new adult fantasy, not 100% sure. This is Queen of Queen and Whispers by Helen Corcoran. And then the next physical read is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, which is a hard-hitting contemporary adult. And then finally, for a book that I'll be listening to the audiobook and reading along, we have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. So that's what we're reading in this vlog. If you're interested in any of those, continue onwards. But we're starting with I Killed Zoe Spanos today. So I got through a little bit of I Killed Zoe Spanos today. I'm about 110 pages in now. This is really interesting. So this is a YA thriller, if I didn't say that a million times already. And what we're following is a girl called Anna, who is an au pair in this Hamptons little village for the summer. And she arrives in town and everyone's telling her she looks like this girl Zoe who went missing like 6 months prior. But then we also know, it's like split timeline, and we also know that she is now under arrest and in like awaiting trial. And she says she was like negligently involved in killing this girl Zoe. So we're not sure how Zoe's found from going missing. How that ties in with Anna, but there's also a lot of mystery around her recounting of the events. Like, she confessed, but a lot of people have a lot of different things to say about it, and whether that's an accurate confession is a totally different matter. This has a podcast element, which I really enjoy. I'm listening to the audiobook, especially for those podcast elements. We love podcasts in audiobooks. There's not as much of it as there is in, say, like Sadie, that is half podcast, half normal narrative. But it's definitely there, and I'm enjoying the plot. I'm out of focus. I'm enjoying the mystery and the characters and the plot. I do like a well-constructed YA thriller, I think. Actually, a well-constructed thriller full stop, but there are certain things I like and certain things I don't. This one's currently chalking up to be something I'm enjoying, but again, I'm only 100 pages in. I will update you when I get a bit further. So I am now, it's now Tuesday night. I'm 190 pages into I Killed Zoe Spanos. So just over halfway. I'm hoping to finish this tomorrow. I didn't have much work that was audiobook suitable today, so I couldn't get very far, but I've got more audiobook suitable work to do tomorrow. So hopefully I can slam through a decent portion of this and finish it tomorrow. Is the plan. We'll update you. I'm really freaking enjoying it. It's super interesting and intriguing, and I'm liking the multiple points of view and the podcast elements, and I'm just like, oh, what's happening? I just hope the reveal lives up to the anticipation. You feel? But the suspense and the intrigue so far, good. So I can't remember when I last talked to you about this, but it is currently Wednesday night. I just finished I Killed Zoe Spanos by Kit Frick. I freaking loved this. I think the build up was really fun. I do think the reveal wasn't perfect for me, so I ended up giving this a 4 stars. I feel like it could have been a bit more, but the very end kind of was, but like it just didn't quite fully deliver on the twist. But like, I don't know what I would have done instead. So I was just waiting to be like completely blown out of the water, and it didn't completely blow me out of the water, but it was really interesting. This very much relies on an unreliable narrator, which is clear from the very start. We're following Anna, who said she killed Zoe, but it's obvious she didn't, otherwise what is the point of the book? And I thought this was done really interestingly. I really enjoyed this. I thought the narration was done great. It's a full cast audiobook, following the different perspectives, and then there's podcast elements, and those are done in full cast, and I thought that was fabulous. Like, Sadie did a great job with it. This, maybe because there's less of it than in Sadie, it's not full. There's only a couple of instances where you like hear the sound effects and things like you do in Sadie, where Sadie like has the sound effects of the coffee shop and everything, like it goes real hard on sound effects. This one was less hard on sound effects, but I think it did a really good job with the podcast elements, and I really liked the narration, and it was really good. I just think the reveal needed to be something extra special for me to give it a 5 stars, but it's a really solid 4 stars. And if you enjoy young adult thrillers, I think you will really enjoy this. I don't think it leans too heavily on any of those negative tropes that come up a lot in YA thrillers, especially like slut shaming and stuff. This is much more a psychological, suspensey whodunit, and I thought it was developed really well. So I enjoyed my time reading this, and I gave it 4 stars. And next up, I'm going to pick up Bone Cries Moon by Catherine Purdy. I won't start it tonight. I'm going to start it tomorrow when I get to work. But it's like 11 hours on audiobook, so that's like 5.5 hours on double speed. I'm going to try and read it all tomorrow, is my hope. I don't know if it'll actually happen, but that's what we're aiming for, because I have a lot of stuff at work to do today that is I could use an audiobook for. So tomorrow, so I'm gonna attempt it to slam through it in one day. Don't know if it'll actually happen, but we'll see. Hi, it is Thursday night. I have given up on work for the day, but I did get through most. I didn't quite finish, but I got through most of Bone Cries Moon. I'm like, let's have a look at my actual percentage. I'm at 60% of the way through the audiobook. I've got about 4 hours left. So I'm gonna finish up tomorrow, and then also probably get through a large section of June Boys, the June Boys, which is my 3rd book for this vlog. But yeah, yes, we're gonna finish that tomorrow. So I didn't quite get through it all today. I am enjoying it. It's interesting, but I don't feel super connected to any of the characters. It's kind of just a like fun time, despite being like kind of high stakes. I don't know. We'll see how the last 40% goes, but I am enjoying it a good amount. So did I talk about finishing Bone Cries Moon, or did I just slam straight past and immediately pick up the next book? But I did finish Bone Cries Moon today. I gave it 3 stars. This is by Catherine Purdy. Gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I didn't connect a whole lot with any of the characters. It was interesting. I think the most fast-paced, like, high-stakes bit was right at the end. Like, I really enjoyed... So I'm itching my arm. I really enjoyed the conclusion, like, denouement? Like, the final little, like, whoosh thing happening. I thought that was really clever. I didn't feel particularly connected to the characters, but the world was interesting. And I think I might pick up the second one on audiobook as well, just to see how that ending plays out. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. And then I proceeded to start on the June Boys. I didn't get very far. I'm like 88 pages into this. I am enjoying this. I had a moment of confusion where I was trying to figure out timelines, but I think I'm on top of it now. I think. We'll see. If everyone says this book's real confusing, it took me like, a couple of minutes of like actively hardcore thinking to figure out the timeline. But then when I did, I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. If that's the only confusing thing, I think I'm set, but I'm scared there's going to be more that I don't understand. But so far, this is like not a thriller. I would say, like, I feel like this lines up more with her previous book, which is Dress Codes for Small Towns. It's like that same dealing with complex family and friend dynamics in a small town in Kentucky, with just the backdrop being these kidnappings and, like, this time around murder. So, like, it's very weird. I feel like if you go in expecting a thriller, this is not quite it. It's much more about, like, the interpersonal drama than the thriller aspect, though there is a kind of mystery component where she's trying to, like, figure out what happened, what is happening. But really it's much more about the interpersonal dynamics. So I'm kind of enjoying it. I feel like I came in with low expectations because everyone said it wasn't good, it was confusing, didn't make sense. So I came in with really low expectations. To me, so far, the only thing that's really surprised me is the tone. Like, as I said, being less thriller, more interpersonal dynamics. But I'm kind of enjoying it so far. So we'll see how that goes. And I'll continue it tomorrow and let you know how it all goes. I'm also planning on reading all of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes tomorrow for this vlog, so we'll see how that goes. My plan is to read along with the audiobook on 3.5 times speed, which should get it done in like 4.5 hours, and I start work at 10, so there's like plenty of hours of the day. But I haven't really thought through, like, I want to sleep in a little bit, so I'm going to try and get through as much as that. I'm going to try and read all of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but if I could also finish June Boys, that could be good. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I do want to do some, like, crafty stuff, which I will probably do while listening to the June Boys. So that, whether I do that tomorrow or Sunday, we will see what time I get up, because I'm going to sleep in a little bit first. Okay, so let me have a moment to talk while I was in my glasses in detail about this guy. So I was thinking about this last night while I was at work, while I was trying to go to sleep, but I have so many thoughts about this, and like, I don't think it's a perfect book, but I have a lot of, like, I haven't seen people, to me, articulate why they didn't like it other than that it was slow and not much happened. I disagree. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but I have a lot of thoughts. And I kind of love it so far. I am only 300 pages in. I've got 200 pages left. I have also been listening along to the audiobook on a fast speed, so I've been progressing fast. If I was trying to read this and it was taking me a week, I would probably think it was slow. But I'm like, I started it yesterday, I'm gonna finish it today. But I have thoughts, and I think I settled in last night to really, like, remember, I'm 300 pages in, this could change in the last 200 pages, but what I'm currently feeling is that I feel like I'm enjoying, son, I don't know what to do about this. Oh, there we go. I feel like I'm having a fun time, but I feel like my enjoyment level is the, like, most insignificant part of my experience, really, reading this. And I am enjoying myself because I'm having a fun time analyzing it. And I think in analysing it, I've come to realise that there, or at least to me, that in the original Hunger Games series, there was some overt, clear references to things, revolutions, problems with capitalism, manipulation and control within society, panopticon kind of stuff. It's like the Hunger Games is very reminiscent of like an extreme panopticon, which is a like, the panopticon is like an ideal prison where everyone feels like they're being watched all the time. It's like a mode of control, of how to like make prisoners. It was a prison reform movement after they went from like prisons. The panopticon was kind of part of the movement where prisons became a punishment and not just somewhere to store someone waiting for their punishment, which was often execution or hard labor, or I don't know. Like, before that time, prisons were a storage unit. And then the panopticon was a model of prisons, and one of the very first models of prisons as a punishment in and of itself. And it's a lot about feeling watched, control, that kind of thing. And you can really see how like the Hunger Games itself is a method of control of the population, and all those like very overt references to revolution and the horrors in the Hunger Games. And so I feel like this coming out so much later, it has those same themes, but they've been done already. Like, we've already talked about them in the context of the Hunger Games. So this to me needed to bring something overtly new, and in the overt reading, I don't think it does. I feel like it lacks some overt stuff that would make it immediately enjoyable and like clicky. Instead, what this is doing so well, in my opinion, though feel free to debate with me because I'm sure different people will think it's doing things differently, I think it needs to be better on the overt stuff to be perfect, definitely. Like, without the overt stuff, I don't think the deeper reading stands up to make the book great. So we'll stand by that. But some of this deeper reading shit is so good, man. It's so good. Like, the subtle way Snow, who in this, like, obviously you can't alienate him completely in this because he's the perspective character, basically. It's third person, but it's close to his perspective. It's close third person. You would have to change the perspective entirely to be able to keep him full villainous throughout. Instead, he's this, like, we're kind of reading from his head, but he's so narcissistic and so self-centered, obviously narcissism, but in a way that's so subtle that you almost get gaslighted by it. Like I say this, and like, you forget that he's narcissistic because you're in his head and he's rationalizing his narcissism so well to the audience, and then suddenly he'll say some things and it just comes up occasionally where you'll be like, oh, and reminds you that everything he does is so self-centered. Even the things that are like, don't seem self-centered, like he really cares. So he's a mentor in this. In his early career, he's like a high school student and they're the first mentors. And he's mentoring a girl in the games, and this is kind of the first games where some of the aspects of the modern, like, Hunger Games era games are being developed. So keep that in mind. Like, some of these, it's a very primitive form of the games. Like an early form. And their actions are directly leading to things that will later become the games down the track. They're the first round of mentors ever. And it's like the 10th games. And he's, like, got feelings for the girl, but to me she 100% reads as a goal attainment for him. Like, it's not about the romance, it's if he wins, he gets everything he wanted. Like, he needs her to succeed for his own personal gain. And he has this kind of hots for her thing, but in more like a what can she get me kind of way. It's not romantic, at least not how I'm reading it. And it's creepy as fuck. And 100% so narcissism. Like, it's all just about how he can benefit from her. The other thing I think it really touches on really well is, in this subtle reading, is the idea of these. So the war happened in the living memory of these people, these kids. They grew up as children of the war, and I wish it explained in more detail two things, which it might later in the book, but currently I wish it would explain in more detail why the war started. There was a couple of throwaway lines that implied that there was massive wealth inequity between the capital and the rest of the population. And so the rest of the population rebelled against the capital, which we knew, to minimize wealth, minimize that wealth inequality. But they ultimately were tamped down. But this shows, with reading from people from the capital's perspective, and you can see how they've been propaganded, I guess, but one of the things I wish it did overtly was show some more of that propaganda, because you're seeing more the response to that rather than the actual propaganda, and I wish that was there. But you see these kids who grew up in a war zone, but they were always of the benefiting class. They were rich, they went through a period of war, and now they're rich again, or mostly rich again. But they still see everyone who participated in the war from the rebel side, so the districts, as like, they did the worst things to us. It was so horrific that they then use that to alienate the districts and other them, and allows them to participate in something like the Hunger Games, like as spectators, without feeling the guilt, because they've othered the districts so intensely. And that narrative is so subtly woven in with different, like, because this is early games, like within the first 10 years these kids have kind of grown up with the games, but not their whole life. Most of them were like 4 to 8 when the games first came in, and not all of them are for the games. A lot of them are like, why are we doing this to people? But the like othering that's taking place, I just wish it was more overt. Like, I feel like it needed some overt propaganda rather than just this subtle like argument of differences. We also have I wish they also detailed in more explanation how the games came about, though that might be in those last 200 pages. But it's been hinted at that the games were a thought experiment by this professor, but it was never meant to be enacted. It was a thought experiment, like the Panopticon, and then implemented by some pretty, like, I would say, sociopathic people, and then propaganded to everyone else. And Snow doesn't like fully agree with the games. He doesn't see why not, but he also doesn't see why. And he's participating to self-service, but it's weird. The other thing that I think is, and it may be better in this last 200, but there's a villain character who's like the sociopathic person, the head game maker. And she, to me, is a bit one-dimensional. Like, she's just sociopathic because she is. Like, she's nuts. I wish she had a bit more dimension. And I think explaining how her and this professor, the professor's idea and her adapting it to the actual Hunger Games, that would have been so much cooler. Like, instead we're seeing 10 years down the track after that happened. I wish we had some flashbacks or something to that. Because 10 years down the track, we're seeing how it's developing into what we see today, instead of just throwing, originally it was just like throwing, how many? 12, 13, 26 kids in an arena with some weapons and telling them to kill each other till one's left. It was very like brutal, nothing fancy. This is the Hunger Games where they're developing mentors, the food and medicine drops, more of a like high, like strategic, stealthy gameplay. And surprises that are not just the other contestants. That's all being introduced in this game. So we're seeing the generation of those things and how they come about because of different suggestions and different like factors outside of... I'm fascinated by that, but I wish there was more about like to make that villain more three-dimensional. And yeah, I feel like it just needs more overt talk of like to describe how... I think it's fascinating how like critiquing and exploring how the propaganda of a majority group, like a winning group, white people, like convince themselves that the harm they're doing to other people is deserved or not really harm. I feel like it's trying to do it on a subtle level, but it's missing the overt references to make it immediately obvious to then have a deeper exploration. You have to be coming at this, analysing it for that, rather than it being overtly obvious. But the deep analysis is there, and I just wish it had that overt... yeah, but it's fascinating. I'm really enjoying it, but I don't think it's perfect. I feel like it's dropped the ball on some of those things, because the Hunger Games itself, its topics of revolution and all of that are so overt with all these like undercurrent things that you can deeply analyze, especially like Katniss's PTSD and trauma in general across the whole series, and all of that kind of thing is also carefully done. Generational trauma, like all of that is so carefully done in the actual series. And this, I feel like the balance between the overt and the subtle references are just not balanced right. Yeah. But oh man, I would love to do essays about this. I am also on the topic, now that I've been talking for like 15 minutes just about Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I'm also like halfway through June Boys. I'm going to try and finish both of these today, which means I actually have to like get reading, because I also have to shower and wash my hair at some point. But we're going to do that now. Yeah. I'm also starting a physical read. I was meant to do it last night, but I just wasn't really feeling it when I went to work. And my next physical read, which is for this vlog, the first physical read of this vlog, is The Mercies by Kieran Millward-Hargrave. But I haven't started this yet, but we're gonna do that sometime today. Yeah. Okay, so before I sit down to finish the June Boys, I did finish this. I don't give it a 4-star. I did just really enjoy my time reading it, which I feel like is not a universal experience. That's fine, like no judgment on this front. As I said earlier, I can definitely understand why it might feel slow. To me it didn't, but I could see why it might, and that not much really happens. It doesn't obviously make any real impact on this like series as a whole, but I thought it was really interesting. I was doing some interesting things. I do think it failed to be perfect on a number of fronts. As I was saying, like I don't think it went all the way, especially highlighting the multi-levels of how these things develop, like governmental, individual, cultural levels fully. Could have been more explicit, more detailed, like I wanted propaganda, and more like they're talking about how propaganda is going to develop, like the Hunger Games is propaganda, but not how the propaganda would have been used to introduce the othering between the capital kids and the like people from the capital and the districts at the immediate outset of the war. Like that needed more development in my mind. Also the last like 30 pages happened really quickly. Like you can obviously see where everything had been developing throughout, but it was like a perspective shift that happened really suddenly. So like you're following Snow and the whole time he's justifying everything to himself, and in a way that you can go, that you can almost forget that he's a narcissist, sociopathic. It's there that any kind of, like, his attraction towards the person he's mentoring in the games, his tribute, is very one-sided, manipulative. He's interested in her, but in the way that his possession over her, and like how she can make him look good as a competitor, and then like a possessive kind of way. And that's really obvious throughout all of it, but it's very subtle, and you're seeing how he's like convincing himself, and brief moments can come across of like, oh yeah, he's a fucking narcissist, but it wasn't like, it was, you were allowed, it gave you space to settle into his perspective, which I think is necessary for you to like get through the whole book. But then suddenly in the last 30 or so pages, where he really switches on the sociopath, it's not really a switch on. It was obvious that it was there the whole way through, but suddenly you're not given as much of that like rounded edging to hide it in the narrative a little. Like, it was not sugar coated. You couldn't interpret it any other way, and so it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. I felt like it needed a bit more of a gradual movement from like his own self-justification into this like crazy horrific act. But like, it worked and it didn't. I also think it didn't go far enough to talk about some of the very obvious parallels to current society and stuff. I feel like it could have just done more. It was trying real hard. I think the subtle things, like you could analyze the crap out of this, you could write essays about like individual passages in this. I think it was done very subtly, and some things I absolutely loved, I thought would handled great, but I do think it could have done so much more. Like, it could have been more, and I'm just, so it's not a 5-star by any means. It's probably like a 3.75, but I did really enjoy my time reading it. It was a fun experience. It was very fast paced. I personally enjoyed the audiobook. It's narrated by Santino Fontana. If you didn't know, Santino Fontana does the voice of Hans in Frozen. He's also on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. He's also played one of the Prince Charmings in like Cinderella on Broadway. And he's been in other stuff as well. We love Santino Fontana in this house. And so I think, you know, he can do villain because he was Hans. So that, he's the perfect narrator for me. Like, it just worked. I don't think he did the female voices great, like, but I don't think many male audiobook narrators can do the female voices great. Women can do men's voices better than men can do women's voices, in my opinion, in audiobook narrations, but that's just a thing. And no problem with Santino, just like in general. But the audiobook I thought was great. I'd heard bad reviews about it, people hating the audiobook. Again, I loved it. I thought it was really good. I like Santino's voice and the way it flows. So I think everything just added up to be on the winning side for me. But yeah, I think it had the potential to do a lot more than it did. Like, I feel like it could have been absolutely explosive, especially in today's climate. You could have looked at so many more things, whereas I feel like, whereas The Hunger Games was such a reflection of the climate of the time, this is more a reflection of the Hunger Games, not the climate of now. And I feel like it could have gone there, but it didn't. And that, I think, is where it is lacking. It could have gone so much further to make commentary on the now, but instead it's just making commentary on the Hunger Games. It's so very much about how us and their mentality can develop and lead you to something like this, and then so much of like the meta stuff of how the Hunger Games developed, and yeah, very much about like that privileged take of feeling like white fragility. It's very much like an upper middle class white fragility, and It does critique that and reflect that, I think, but it doesn't go far enough. It could go so much further. And like, yeah, like even the people who are from the Capitol and disagreeing with the Hunger Games are still like, don't know what to do about it. Like, I liked it. That's all I can say. I did really enjoy it. I'll try and talk about it concisely and making sense of my wrap up. I will say, she really needed to, like, it didn't draw me out of the story, I think because I was listening to the audiobook and couldn't allow myself because I was going so fast. But Coriolanus, Enos, and then his friend's name's Sejanus. There's so many anuses. Like, pick some different names. But I understand they're meant to be like Greek or Roman. Like, I get it. But like, here's me thinking about butts the whole time. So I wasn't. It did not draw me out of the story as much as it could have, but it could definitely draw people out of the story. Yeah, so if you hate this, if you hated The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I totally understand. I get it. I do think it requires a subtle approach and a subtle eye, because I do think at times, if you're not critiquing Snow's every thought, you can get caught up in his emotions, but his emotions are filtered through his narcissism and sociopathy. So you've got to like critique his own thought process as you're going. And if you get caught up in his thought process, you're like, why are we caring about this sociopath and his love for a girl? Like, it's not even about, like, to me it's not about that. To me it's so much about like that develop in, like, in his relationship is like the narcissism and control and power dynamics, and like he's always been in a position of power above her. I wish she had a bit more agency in that regard, but I don't know, I feel like it also might have, like, I think she's not got agency intentionally, so you can see how he's like, yeah, like she doesn't have agency. He controls fucking everything. But I think that's intentional. Especially with the ending, though. I wish there was something from her perspective and some kind of agency there. But I've got some theories. And I haven't read the original series in a long time to know if I'm pulling those theories out of my ass or not. But I have some theories. But yeah, 4 stars. Anyway, I'm gonna dive in and finish up the June Boys now. Yeah. It's like, what, 8 o'clock at night? 8:30? 8:30. I hope you're having a good time. Okay, so I just finished listening to the June Boys, and I don't really feel like I've talked about this much in the vlog, but I don't know what to think about this. I think I've set it on a 3-star rating, but honestly, I'm so torn. I think my problem with this is it borders the line between a couple of genres, and so I feel like it doesn't do enough in any direction, if that makes sense. So it's not a very suspenseful thriller, like it doesn't have that like page-turning suspense. It's got a mystery, but to me it didn't feel suspenseful. And I think I was talking earlier about how it kind of feels like a exploring relationship dynamic story, and I think that kind of did interesting stuff, but then it didn't finalize any of it, because then the finale was instead of being that character stuff, was the finale of like the whodunit. So I don't feel satisfied on that front either. But a lot of people were really confused about this, and I wasn't super confused. There was stuff that I feel like could have been easily laid out better with minimal effort to make this make more sense, because there's 2 timelines, but there are 2 points of view, but the timelines don't line up. I think it needed to be a bit clearer. Even just, so like letters are written in July and the perspective starts in May. I feel like you could have had a year on them, and even maybe dates, and then you could have kept track, like the difference between the 2 timelines. If it was like 12th of May 2010, like if you had specific dates to keep track, whereas trying to figure out how they overlapped was really difficult. And then I also think you could have had, so one of the points of view is letters written by one of the June boys that have been kidnapped. And he's writing letters to a real life person who was also abducted and held captive for 9 months and then found. But that's not laid out till right at the end. Like, it's a final note to the reader. I feel like that could have just been made clearer right at the start, because to me that was just like, why? Like, I didn't get it. It would have made more sense to either him be writing these not to this woman that he's never met, but to his cousin, who is the main character in the other narrative. But like, I understand why you would refer back to that, but I feel like it needed to be set up better, and it wasn't. Like, there's no mention of her in the narrative at all, other than as the mysterious person he's writing these letters to, just in like a Dear Elizabeth. And then at the end, he was writing these letters to Elizabeth Smart, who was abducted. Like, that needed an explanation, because it just seemed out of place to me. But yeah, I thought the actual mystery and whodunit of everything was good, but this was relying more on unreliable narrators than actual like twists and turns to hold the suspense, and I don't think that was ideal. But yeah, it was interesting. 3 stars. I did enjoy my time reading it. It was very weird. Also, the audiobook, if you're interested, has like half an hour, which I'm not listening to because I honestly can't be bothered. The author talking to Rita Petties, who was another author, about craft. So if that's something you're interested in, that's there. There's also an extra like 20-minute section that isn't in the book, that's a like recorded interview with one of the characters. So that could be interesting if you were interested. It's on the audiobook, but it's not in the physical book. So yeah, if you didn't know that, that's there. Anyway, I'm about to, before I go to bed, I'm going to go to bed in a couple of minutes, but I'm just going to read a couple of chapters of The Mercies before I fall asleep. So this is our next read. Okay, so I think I forgot to vlog yesterday, but The Mercies, this is what I'm working on. I started it Sunday. I only got like 2 chapters in. Got like 100 pages in last night, but I kind of had a busy day. I was doing some fun stuff, so I didn't finish it, or yeah, you can get anywhere near finish it. It's now Tuesday. I'm on page 123 currently. I've read like a chapter or 2 this morning. I'm enjoying this. It's giving me really strong, like, I think the other one was set in Finland, not in Norway. I can't quite remember. But there's an Australian book written by an Australian author, and it won an Australian prize. It might have even been a Man Booker nominee. Well, I can't remember. I can't remember what it was called now, but it was about the last hanging, like murder case and execution in, I think it was Finland, but it might have been Norway. And this is giving me strong vibes, I think, also because of the like remote, very much based in the land and like the sea community in these northern Scandinavian countries. So I'm definitely feeling that vibe. This basically is a historical fiction book. We follow this tiny town, Norwegian island, yes, called Vardø. I don't really know how to pronounce the over the line through it, so I'm going to say Vardø. And on Christmas Eve in 1617, there was a big storm that came in, and all the men of the village died in the storm. They were out fishing, and like the boat capsized, and they all died. So, except for like the pastor, I think. Though the pastor may have been brought in afterwards, can't remember. But the like village of women are basically having to take over the responsibilities of the men just to stay alive. And then we're seeing some, like at this time, Norway and Denmark were kind of one thing. And the Danish king Christian VI, I think it said, was really pushing the Christian agenda, like the Catholic agenda. and he's wanting to make sure everyone's converted to Catholicism. And up in this rural area, there's a local indigenous group that practice their own culture and religion. I guess religion, culture at any rate. And even the towns are much more beholden to the sea than to God. Like, they might be loosely Catholic, but it's not a huge deal. They're not like super pious as a whole. And especially now that these women have taken up roles of like responsibility in the town to keep the town alive, their connection to Catholicism is definitely reduced. And so the king is sending in these people, men, to convert the town forcibly to Catholicism. So these men have just arrived where I'm at. But I understand that the historical context of this book is that it's basically a series of witch trials for the women who refuse to bend to Catholicism, and to the Sami, the native people of the area. Indigenous the indigenous people of the area. So that is definitely a thing. And it's a historical event. Obviously this is historical fiction, but we're really getting a look into the like mundanity of the town, of this island, and what it means to be a woman in this time period in connection to Catholicism. We're following a woman who was set to be married, but her husband died on the boat and in the storm. And so she lost kind of some of her position because she was meant to be going into like the biggest house, and it was going to be one of the most important women in town. But then with her husband's death, she's still living with her mother and her sister-in-law and her sister-in-law's baby in a tiny cramped house. Her sister-in-law is from the indigenous group, and the intersections of that is really interesting. And then we also follow the young wife of one of the men coming in, who's essentially been sold to him and is dealing with that. It's intense. I'm really, really enjoying it. The writing style is very like cold and simplistic, I would say, but intentionally it really works for the setting. And it's kind of similar to the writing style of that other book that I can't remember the name of. If I remember it, I'll let you know. I should just get up and go find it on my shelf. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping to finish this tonight, because I'm having a good time. Say hi to my pretty kitty. Say hi to my pretty kitty. So I did end up finishing The Mercies last night. Or tonight. What am I doing? I'm tired. I need to go to bed. I did finish this tonight. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was really well developed. The writing style was beautiful in like a very simplistic and cold way. Like it perfectly matched the vibe. It was great. This is sapphic, if you didn't know, but a bit tragic, but like makes sense for the historical setting for it to be tragic. And it was really good. I really, really enjoyed this. I don't even know how to talk about it. It was just so good. It was dark and brutal, especially towards the end. It was definitely kind of like a slow build up because it was much more of a character study. And then the ending was really brutal. So I definitely would recommend this. This was beautiful. Anyway, my next read is going to be Queen of Coins and Whispers. I've read a whole like 1 chapter, so I'm like 16 pages in, and I'm out of focus. There we go. But I'll keep working on this tomorrow. Okay, so I'm 160 pages into this. I'm going to try and get to page 200 before I go to bed. I was kind of hoping to get a bit further, but I've been really distractible tonight for some reason. Just this whole week. But I am really enjoying aspects, and I wish some other aspects were just a little better. So I'm loving the characters as individual people, and the court intrigue stuff is really fun. This is a political, I don't even want to call it a fantasy. There's no magic. or at least none that has been described, but like medieval style, not even medieval, it's more like 18th century, like Victorian European court intrigue in a like non-earth world, like a made-up world. It's that kind of fantasy, like a fantasy with no magic. There is a name for that. If someone knows the name for that, please comment down below. But it's that, at least so far. There's no hint of anything actually magical. It's all court intrigue, and I'm loving it, but it does mean it's kind of like slower paced, but I don't mind. Well, like, it's kind of like both ways. I think what I mean by slower pace isn't actually slower pace, because it's going quite fast time wise. It's doing a lot of jumping ahead rather than sitting in it too much. But what I think I mean is, like, I can't see, to me, books go slow in my reading, my ability to read them, when I don't understand what the primary conflict is. And to me, the conflict that I think is set up as the primary conflict feels secondary. So there is a rival faction. So we follow the queen and her like spy master, and it's a kind of romance between them, the two women, and I love the dynamic. It's great. And the conflict is kind of like the queen's prime minister of sorts is super corrupt and is doing some shady stuff, but it still feels all relatively, like, even though there's been some like suspicious deaths and things, it feels really like run-of-the-mill court intrigue, not anything super like lead plotty, you know what I mean? It's all like, oh, and there was an assassination attempt on such and such, and then this, and like, but like, that seems normal, not a plot. It just seems, yeah, like more just run-of-the-mill court intrigue, and it's fun, but it makes it feel like it's kind of lacking a driving plot, because it seems obvious that you just maneuver around him, discredit him, get him out of parliament, done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel enough tension in the moving pieces of the plot. The tension, my friends, is in the romance, which we are here for. But yeah, so it is kind of making it a little slow for me to read. I move through the pages quickly, but I'm distractible, which, yeah, for me happens most often when the plot isn't driving enough. The other critique I have of this is told in first person dual perspective, and my problem with that is I feel like it should have been switched to third person dual perspective, because I have a hard time distinguishing the narrative voice of the two characters. I have to keep checking in to remember which one I'm talking with, like who is leading the discussion, especially because they're in conversation with each other a lot. And their names are they're not the same. They're not that similar, but visually, and I don't read every single word. I can't remember what the word is. It's not actually skim reading, because I can also skim read above and beyond, but it's like, I can't remember that. It's a technique where you don't read every single word. My head has a hard time distinguishing their names. They both end in IA. So we have Leah and Zanya, and they just visually look too similar. So when I'm reading quickly, which this is like, feels very fast, like a fast eye on the page, so I'm like, my brain wants to read quickly, but I have a hard time telling Leah and Zanya apart. I have to like think extra for it, rather than like two visually distinct names. I wouldn't have that problem. So often I'm forgetting which name belongs to who, and then I have to go back and look for context cues as to like, wait, are we from the perspective of the Queen or the perspective of the Spy Master right now? So there's been quite a few scenes where I've just been like, hang on, who's the I and who is the she here? You know what I mean? And that just kind of draws me out of the story a little bit, whereas if it was in third person and they were using their names constantly, or even just if they had slightly different names, so it was a bit more distinguishable to my brain, that would be swell. Why did my brain say swole? This book is not buff. But yeah, that would be great. But alas, I'm gonna keep reading and then go to sleep. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Hey, with this. Alright, so it's Sunday. It's been a while since I updated, but I did just finish Queen of Coin and Whispers this morning. I ended up actually really enjoying this in the long run. I was talking about how I didn't feel like there was much of a plot at the start. And then I clicked and realised it's because this is more focused on the romance than anything else. There is a plot, it is there, but it's a little slow to build and is much more background to the romance. But I actually ended up really enjoying this. It's a female-female romance set in a like no magic fantasy and no magic high fantasy, and it was just really fun and really fast-paced when you think of like the romance as the primary plot. My problem was at the start was that I wasn't considering the romance the primary plot, but I ended up loving this. I gave it 4 stars. The romance is great. It's a Queen and bodyguard romance. Technically Queen and Spy Master, but like it has the Queen bodyguard vibes. It's queer, like sapphic, and it's glorious. I would totally recommend this. I gave it 4 stars. And then the next thing I'm gonna take to work with me tonight is My Duck Vanessa, which is the last book for this vlog. So probably finish this, I'm hoping to finish this tomorrow, but we'll see how far I get through it tonight at work, and I'll update you tomorrow. So it's Wednesday night, my dudes. I'm 113 pages into My Duck Vanessa. This is disturbing as all hell. If definitely check out a complete list of trigger warnings for this, but basically pedophilia, sexual abuse stuff. It's freaking disgusting. It's so unsettling. If anything regarding grooming, abuse patterns and stuff is going to be triggering to you, definitely stay clear of this. It's all, so the basic premise, if you didn't know though, I think this has like been pretty hyped, so you probably have heard about it, but if you have managed to survive this long without hearing about My Duck Vanessa, essentially it's about a girl who was groomed and abused by her high school teacher, but she thought they had a loving, consensual relationship, even if it was a bit like dark love. Like she admits that it was like she romanticizes it a lot, but she's like kind of aware it's abuse. And then another girl who went to her school comes forward and accuses him of abuse and like pedophilia. And she's kind of coming to terms with the way she was groomed and that she was a victim, because she doesn't quite consider herself a victim. And it's fucking disturbing. It's flashbacks between when she was 15 and then now that she's 30, I think. 32. And it's fucking gross. So bear that in mind. It's really confronting, but also really powerfully written, so I'm interested to see how it progresses. I was hoping to finish it today. I don't think I will finish it, but hopefully we'll get like another 150 or so pages read. I've got to go to work soon, but I'm about to dive into this. I've got like 20 minutes before I gotta leave work, but then hopefully I can get quite a bit of this read at work. And we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I definitely want to finish this tomorrow, so I don't want to be too late to dive into. I want to get through as much of this as I can tonight. We'll update tomorrow. So I finished reading My Duck Vanessa. So we're finally at the end of this vlog. I ended up giving this a 5 stars. This was so tough. I was bordering between a 4 and a 5 stars, but I think ultimately it's going to really stick with me. It's going to be really impactful. So I went with a 5. As I said last time I was talking about this, there's a lot of trigger warnings. Be really cautious going into this. It is super dark, super confronting, but I thought it was also a really powerful story of like the grey areas of understanding your own trauma. I feel like it could be useful to come, like, for me, like, two of my partners are social workers. One specifically trained in trauma counselling and domestic violence counselling, and I am aware of what, like, grooming behaviours, and like obviously they're obvious in here, but also not all of them necessarily are. And I feel like maybe if you don't have that background knowledge, I don't know, I feel like it could benefit from coming with a little primer that you could read after of like, these are grooming patterns, no, you know what I mean? These are your really obvious red flags. Yeah, I don't know. It was hard and confronting, and I don't really know what to even think about it. But they have 5 stars. So there's that. I don't even know who I'd recommend this to, like everyone, but also like be very conscious of your own, if you've got trauma that you need to be cautious of, like be aware. But I think this is really powerful and really important, and a really interesting perspective. I kind of feel like I wanted more follow through, but I also understand why it stopped where it did, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm very confused in general. But I did really enjoy it. So, like, not enjoy, but like appreciated it for what it is. Anyway, that's the last book for this vlog. I feel like I've been filming this vlog for literal years. It's gonna be fun to edit. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching. This is kind of a bum note. In like it was really good, but I don't know how to talk about it, and it's very unsettling. But vlog 4, there was going to be 5, but I've just combined it to 4 because of what was going to be 5, one of them I've already DNF'd, and another I might not ever get to. So we're just having a kind of extra long vlog 4. So keep your eye out for that. It should be coming relatively soon, probably early in September. Keep your eyes peeled, as well as for my August haul and wrap up. And I will see you soon with another video. Thanks, bye.